Are you planning to move to Australia in 2025 through an employer-sponsored visa? What if I told you that a few changes this year could either fast-track your application or leave you stuck in the backlog? In this video, I'm breaking down everything you need to know: the updated timelines, faster pathways to permanent residency, and how you can avoid the most common mistakes that lead to delays. If you're serious about starting a new life in Australia, stay with me. This could be the most important video you watch this year. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Your Name, and this channel is all about helping you understand the Australian visa process step by step. Today, we're talking about the employer-sponsored visa timeline for 2025 and the major updates that could affect how quickly your application gets processed. If you're planning to move to Australia through employer sponsorship, this video is going to be really helpful. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want the latest, reliable updates on Australian visas and immigration. And if this topic is relevant to you, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out. All right, let's get straight into it. First of all, let's quickly go over what the employer-sponsored visa is. This visa allows skilled workers to live and work in Australia if they are sponsored by an approved Australian employer. The most common types of employer-sponsored visas are the Temporary Skill Shortage Visa, Subclass 482, the Employer Nomination Scheme Visa, Subclass 186, and the Regional Sponsored Migration Scheme Visa, Subclass 187. Now, moving into 2025, the Australian government has made several changes to streamline the visa process and address skill shortages across various industries. The Department of Home Affairs has also updated its priorities and timelines to align better with economic needs. Understanding these changes can give you a serious advantage. Let's talk about the overall timeline from start to finish. Please note, this is a general guide. Every case is different, and some applications may take more or less time depending on the circumstances. The first step in the process is securing a job offer from an Australian employer. This can take weeks or even months, depending on your qualifications, the demand for your occupation, and how active you are in your job search. Employers need to be approved sponsors, or they need to apply to become one. In 2025, there's a strong push to make it easier for employers to sponsor foreign workers, especially in healthcare, construction, engineering, and education sectors. Once the employer agrees to sponsor you, they must submit a nomination to the Department of Home Affairs. The nomination process includes demonstrating that they can't find a suitable Australian citizen or permanent resident for the role. They'll also need to show they are offering market salary rates and meet other eligibility criteria. As of 2025, the processing time for nominations under the Temporary Skill Shortage Visa is about 1 to 2 months on average. For the Employer Nomination Scheme Visa, it's slightly longer, generally around 2 to 4 months. After the nomination is lodged, the next step is for you, the applicant, to lodge your visa application. You'll need to provide documents such as your passport, skills assessment, English language test results, health checks, police certificates, and more. The good news is that the Australian government is moving toward digital-first applications, which speeds up the process. In 2025, the visa application stage typically takes 2 to 6 months, depending on the subclass and your individual circumstances. For the 482 visa, it's usually between 2 to 4 months. For the 186 visa, it could be closer to 4 to 6 months. Processing is faster if all your documents are submitted correctly and promptly. Now, let's break down what the timeline could look like in a real-world case. Let's say you're a software engineer applying for a 482 visa. Step 1. In January, you apply for jobs and secure a job offer by the end of February. Step 2. In March, the employer lodges the nomination. It's approved in April. Step 3. In May, you submit your visa application with all the required documents. Step 4. The visa is approved in July. That's a total of about 6 to 7 months from the job offer to the visa approval. Of course, this is an ideal case. Delays can happen for a number of reasons. For example, missing documents, incorrect information, slow communication with your employer, or backlog at the immigration department can all add weeks or even months to the process. Now, let's talk about some of the changes to the employer-sponsored visa in 2025 that you need to be aware of. First, the skilled occupation list has been updated. The government now prioritizes occupations in regional Australia and critical sectors like aged care, renewable energy, and infrastructure. This means if your occupation is in high demand, your application may be processed faster under the Priority Migration Skilled Occupation List. Second, English language requirements are slightly more flexible, especially for regional positions. However, you still need to meet a minimum level of proficiency, usually demonstrated by IELTS, PTE, or similar tests. Third, the government has introduced more transparency around employer obligations. Employers are now required to report more frequently to ensure they are complying with fair work regulations and paying proper wages. This means that the Australian immigration system is putting a stronger focus on ethical employment and reducing exploitation. Next, regional visas are getting more attention in 2025. If you're applying through a regional employer under the subclass 494 visa, you may have access to priority processing and pathways to permanent residency. The Australian government is aiming to reduce congestion in major cities and boost development in regional areas. Now, here are some tips to help you speed up your application process and avoid delays. First, double-check all your documents. This may sound obvious, but small mistakes like mismatched names, expired documents, or incomplete forms are one of the most common causes of delays. Second, get your skills assessment done early. Some people wait until the nomination is lodged to start their skills assessment, but this can push your timeline back by months. If your occupation requires a skills assessment, get that out of the way as soon as possible. Third, prepare for your English test early. Even if you're confident in your English ability, it's important to meet the specific requirements of the visa subclass you're applying for. For example, the 186 visa generally has a higher English requirement than the 482 visa. Fourth, stay in touch with your employer and migration agent if you're using one. Clear communication helps ensure everyone is on the same page and documents are submitted on time. Fifth, make sure your health and police checks are recent. Both of these documents have validity periods, and if they expire during processing, you might be asked to redo them, which adds more delays. You might be wondering about the path to permanent residency. For many people on employer-sponsored visas, that's the ultimate goal. In 2025, the good news is that the pathway from temporary to permanent residency is more streamlined than in previous years. If you're on a 482 visa, you may be eligible to apply for permanent residency through the subclass 186 visa after working with the same employer for at least 2 years, provided your occupation is on the medium-term list. For regional visa holders, you can transition to permanent residency after 3 years under the subclass 191 visa if you meet income and residency requirements. These timelines are important to keep in mind because they help you plan not only your immigration strategy, but also your career and personal life in Australia. Another common question is, can family members be included in an employer-sponsored visa? The answer is yes. Most employer-sponsored visas allow you to include your spouse or partner and dependent children. They will need to meet health and character requirements. Your partner can often work and study in Australia, although the work rights might vary depending on the visa subclass. As we head toward the end of 2025, the Australian government is also investing more in digital processing systems. This means faster turnaround times for applications and more transparency in tracking the status of your visa. In fact, many applicants are now receiving real-time updates through their IMI account. Still, immigration is a complex area, and while the systems are improving, it's important to seek professional advice if you're unsure about anything. Small errors in your application can lead to refusals or major delays. Before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize the key points. The total processing time for an Australia employer-sponsored visa in 2025 is generally between 4 to 8 months, depending on your occupation, visa subclass, and how prepared you are. Critical sectors and regional jobs have priority processing. English, health, and character requirements must be met. Your employer must be an approved sponsor and must demonstrate genuine need for your role. Digital systems are improving processing times, but complete and correct documentation is still essential. So that was a complete breakdown of the Australia employer-sponsored visa timeline for 2025. I hope this video gave you a clear understanding of how the process works, how long it takes, and what the latest changes mean for your application. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important updates on Australian migration. If you have any questions about your situation, or if there's a specific visa topic you'd like us to cover, drop a comment below. I do read and reply to as many as I can. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your visa journey, and I'll see you in the next video.